This is Anthony here, and the next review I want to do is the SH Figuarts Dragon Ball Z Trunks figure. This guy is the one that comes with the most stuff and has some of the newer features on it, so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that. But let's get started with the height. He stands only just over 5 inches tall, so he's about the same height as Gohan, which is appropriate. He's supposed to be that size, maybe a little bit taller, which is fine. He does have some new features, we'll get to that in a minute, but I want to talk about the accessories first because he's got a ton. First off, he has his sword scabbard, which has a peg there. You can peg it into his back like that. I'm not going to put it on because I want to take it off again in a second. And then the strap has a peg that goes back into the scabbard once you get it around his shoulders. It fits on him very well, and it pegs in nicely. And it looks great on the figure, but like I said, I want to leave it off since I don't want it on there for the review. He's got two swords. He's got the full sword, which is perfectly good for displaying and posing and that kind of thing. It's nice and metallic. It looks great. It's nice firm plastic, so it shouldn't have any warping issues. Handle sculpted well. Really, everything's good about the sword. He holds it really well. Then he also has this version, which is meant to go into the scabbard, which obviously works just fine. Or of course you could have a display or a little pose set up where he's stabbing it into somebody, so that works too. So he's got both of those, which is a very nice feature. I'm glad that they included that. Works very well. This is his standard head with the purple hair. He's got that face on there, and he's got three other faces that go with that head. I'm just going to leave them in the tray. There they are right there. One open mouth one stern one, and one that's kind of smiling. So 4 total faces for the purple hair. Then he also has his Super Saiyan hair and 4 faces for that. He's got the open mouth one, the smirking one, the stern one, and then the teeth gritted one. So total of 8 faces, 2 different heads, and of course the hairs pop off so that you can swap the faces in and out. He's got a ton of hands, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 sets of hands. Well, 14 hands total, 7 sets. He's got the 2 fists, obviously, which are fists. He's got 2 open hands that look like this, with the 2 fingers kind of forward a little bit. He's got one for each side, obviously. All of these are doubles unless I say so. He's got the open palm with the flat fingers. He has the one that's meant to hold the sword, which the fingers are flexible enough so that you can get the sword in there relatively easily. But just in case you have trouble, they give you a spare right hand of the same kind, if it'll focus. So if you do break something, you have a spare one, or if you lose one. So he's got technically 3 of those hands, 2 rights, 1 left. He's got one for each side of the open hand with the fingers separated, which is really nice sculpt work, looks great. He has one for each side of the fully opened hand. Again, great sculpt work, no complaints at all for the accessories here. And he has one thumbs up hand, if I can get it out of the package. Come on, there we go. So he's got the thumbs up, which is nice. So tons and tons of hands, tons of posing options. Really, really great figure. Now let's talk about the paint application and the sculpting. The paint application could be a little bit better personally. The hair shading is great, but that's really all the shading there is. The paintwork on the belt could be better. It's just a little bit sloppy. It's not horrible, but it's just not great. The boots are pretty well done, so that's okay by me. They are sculpted on the bottom, so that's nice. And then he has the little Capsule Corp logo on his shoulder, which is done well because it looks like it's an actual application, like a decal or something. So that's good. He does have the gray shirt underneath, or at least the collar of the black shirt that's gray. So overall the paintwork's good. The eyes are real solid, nice. Not really too much to complain about, just could have used a little bit of shading. As far as articulation goes, the head is as you would expect. It's a ball disc, so full range of motion. That spins around in there. Pivots. It's stuck right now, but that does rotate in there. The neck does not have any articulation like some of the older figures, like all the older figures. I guess they figured it wasn't useful enough, or at least because of the collar, they couldn't put it on this guy, so they didn't, which is okay. It's not a huge problem. I'm betting it's just because of the collar. He has new shoulder articulation. It's similar, but it's not quite the same. He's got a ball peg in there for the shoulder to move on, and then this shoulder is a ball disc like the neck. So it rotates like that, and then this rotates and has the cap on it, which is a problem because that cap on there, though it makes the sculpt look good and they have the Capsule Corp logo, he can't get his arm fully around to hold the sword with two hands. It just doesn't really work. It's close, but as you can see, the hands are just not going to line up quite right. It's really close, and you might be able to force it, but do that at your own risk. So that's a problem. You don't really need to have him holding it with two hands, but it would have been nice. He has the double jointed elbows, which is good because Gohan does not. I don't know if I said that in the review or not, but Gohan doesn't. Only the bigger ones did, but he does have it, so maybe they're going to stick with that for the smaller figures. The wrists are the same as always with the ball disc, just like the neck, so full range of motion there. His torso articulation is different. He's got a joint at the top here, which is a ball peg joint, one, and then the double one that he has normally, that all the figures have normally. It doesn't separate like the other ones do. That's all. It's not going to pop up to make him taller or anything, but it is a double joint in there with the belt floating. And then he has the one also, which is at the top where the pecs would be, just underneath the shirt. So, huge amount of articulation for the torso. Great range of motion. The hips are effectively the same as before, they're just slightly done differently. The ball peg still has that floating hinge that lets them extend out for added range of motion. The ball peg still has the socket in there and the thigh still rotates around that, but they have the socket extending out from the rest of the leg. Not sure why they did that. I guess maybe just to tuck them in better, but it's not quite as nice looking. But it does give them a narrower hip and doesn't make them look quite so baggy around the waist, which is fine. Now he's got the double jointed knees now that they all had, but his kneecap is actually a separate piece, and you can kind of play with that to get it to go where you want. Well, obviously you can pop it off, but you don't want to do that. You can tuck it in like that so that the lower leg is good, or the top part is done. You know, however you want to do that, or just leave it like that, and it still looks a little bit better than before. This is closer to what we're used to in a 6-inch figure with a double jointed knee. I don't know personally if I like it a whole lot better than before, because it does kind of bulge out differently than it really should, but either way it's still good, and you still have a great range of motion, so I'm not complaining about that. Ankle articulation is still a ball disc. It's a bigger ball disc, and you can kind of see the metal in there. Excuse me. My allergies are acting up, so I can't breathe and I'm coughing a lot. I apologize for that. But it's still a ball disc. A little bit, or no, it's true. He's the first one with a ball disc, so I'm sorry. He's got more articulation than the other ones do, just by a little bit. And then, of course, the full range, and then the ankle rockers, and all that good stuff. So a decent amount of articulation in the ankle. The toe, though, doesn't have too much, and it's done differently. So this piece that sticks out down here, you're not really going to get him to stand on his toe. It's really just for posing purposes. So it could be better there, but it's not bad. Overall, it's a great figure. Probably, well, I don't want to say it's the best. It's a great figure. I'll leave that up to you to decide if it's the best or not. But he's got the most stuff, that's for sure. And he's got some of the new features like the knee and the ankle. So we'll see how the next ones come out. If they're moving that way for all the figures or just Trunks, I don't know. But we'll see. So it's a great figure. I do recommend it. You should buy it. You can still get it for fairly cheap. Check out the link in the description if you want to go pick one up. I know they have them. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the rest of the reviews. And in the meantime, keep collecting.